There's a voice calling to us across the decades, a warning wrapped in wonder, a prophecy disguised as poetry. It's the voice of a man who looked up at the stars and saw not distant lights, but distant relatives, who peered through telescopes and saw not empty space, but infinite possibility, who studied our pale blue dot and saw both its magnificent fragility and its inhabitants' magnificent foolishness. Carl Sagan left us a message that could literally save our species from itself, but somewhere between the noise of our daily lives and the comfortable amnesia of our collective ego, we've forgotten how to listen. What if I told you that buried in the vast library of human knowledge lies a single insight so profound, so transformative, that fully grasping it could end wars, heal our relationship with nature, and guide us safely through the technological minefield we've created for ourselves? What if this insight isn't hidden in ancient texts or locked away in secret vaults, but has been sitting in plain sight for decades, waiting for a generation wise enough to remember what we've chosen to forget? The message is deceptively simple, almost embarrassingly obvious once you hear it clearly. But like all profound truths, its simplicity masks layers of meaning that spiral down into the very foundation of what it means to be human in a cosmos that doesn't owe us anything. The message is this: we are not separate, not from each other, not from our planet, not from the stars that forge the atoms in our bodies, not from the vast evolutionary story that created consciousness itself. We are not observers of nature. We are nature observing itself. We are not masters of Earth. We are Earth becoming aware of itself. Sagan understood something that our modern world has systematically forgotten. Perspective is everything. When you truly comprehend your place in the cosmic story, not just intellectually, but viscerally, emotionally, spiritually, everything changes. Your priorities realign themselves according to what actually matters rather than what you've been told matters. Your fears shrink to their proper proportions, while your sense of responsibility expands to match the extraordinary privilege of being conscious in a universe that appears to be largely unconscious. But here's what makes this message so urgent, so potentially world-changing. We're living through the exact moment in cosmic history when forgetting it could destroy us, while remembering it could save us. Never before has our species possessed both the power to eliminate itself and the knowledge to understand exactly what we're risking. Never before have the consequences of our choices rippled outward with such speed and irreversibility. Never before has wisdom been more essential for survival. Consider the peculiar moment we occupy in Earth's 4.5 billion-year history. For almost all of that vast timeline, our planet's fate was determined by forces completely beyond any living creature's control. Asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, ice ages, solar variations, the gradual evolution of atmospheric chemistry. But in just the last few centuries, and accelerating dramatically in recent decades, a single species, us, has become the dominant force shaping Earth's future. We've inadvertently triggered the sixth mass extinction. We've altered the planet's atmospheric composition. We've created enough nuclear weapons to end human civilization in an afternoon. We've developed artificial intelligence that may soon surpass human cognitive abilities. Yet most of us still think and act as if we're the same small-scale tribal creatures we were 10,000 years ago, competing for resources on a local scale, making decisions based on immediate gratification rather than long-term consequences, treating symptoms rather than causes, fighting each other over pieces of the pie instead of working together to make sure there's still a pie to fight over. This is the crisis Sagan saw coming decades ago. Not just climate change, not just nuclear weapons, not just the erosion of scientific literacy, but the fundamental mismatch between our godlike technological powers and our still primitive psychological programming. We've become like children playing with loaded weapons, and the safety is off. But the message Sagan left us isn't one of despair, it's one of possibility. He saw that the same scientific thinking that created our technological powers could also give us the wisdom to use them responsibly. He understood that the same cosmic perspective that reveals our insignificance in space reveals our enormous significance in time. We may be the only known instance of matter organizing itself into consciousness, the only known example of the universe becoming aware of itself. This awareness comes with responsibility. When you truly understand that you're made of recycled stardust, that every atom in your body was forged in the nuclear furnace of an ancient star, that your capacity for thought and feeling represents the most complex arrangement of matter and energy we know of anywhere in the observable universe, how can you not feel a sense of cosmic stewardship? How can you not recognize that consciousness is too precious to waste on petty conflicts and too rare to risk destroying through short-sighted choices? The forgotten message is ultimately about growing up as a species, about learning to think beyond tribal loyalties and quarterly profit reports and election cycles, about developing the kind of long-term thinking that cosmic timescales require, the kind of systems thinking that planetary stewardship demands, the kind of species-wide cooperation that survival in a vast and potentially hostile universe necessitates. Tonight, when you look up at the stars, if you can still see them through the light pollution we've created, remember that you're not just observing distant lights, you're participating in a cosmic conversation that began nearly 14 billion years ago, a story of matter and energy organizing itself into patterns of ever-increasing complexity and beauty, culminating in the emergence of beings capable of understanding their own place in the cosmic story. You are stardust that has learned to wonder about stars. You are the universe becoming conscious of itself, and with that consciousness comes both the burden and the privilege of choice. In August 1990, after completing its mission to the outer planets, Voyager 1 turned its camera homeward and took a photograph that would change how thoughtful humans see themselves forever. From 4 billion miles away, Earth appeared as Carl Sagan described it, a pale blue dot suspended in a sunbeam. Everything that had ever happened in human history, every war, every love story, every scientific discovery, every moment of suffering and triumph, existed on a pixel so small it could barely be distinguished from cosmic background noise. Sagan looked at this image and saw something most of us still refuse to acknowledge, a reality check of unprecedented proportions. Here was objective evidence of our true size in the cosmic arena, undeniable proof that all our posturing about importance and superiority and special destiny was just that, posturing. Yet instead of embracing this humbling perspective as the gift it was, as the key to unlocking a more mature understanding of our place and purpose, most of humanity turned away from the cosmic mirror and went back to business as usual. This is the forgotten message that could save us. The cure for human destructiveness isn't more power, more weapons, more control over nature or each other. The cure is perspective. The cure is remembering what we actually are, temporary arrangements of cosmic material that have become conscious, brief flickering of awareness in beings made from the ashes of dead stars, molecules that have learned to contemplate molecules. When you truly absorb this perspective, not just as an interesting intellectual concept, but as a lived reality that changes how you move through the world, several things happen automatically. First, your problems right-size themselves. The argument with your neighbor, the slight from your colleague, the traffic jam that ruins your morning, these don't disappear, but they take on their proper proportions when viewed against the backdrop of cosmic time and space. You realize that most of what we spend our emotional energy fighting about are the equivalent of bacterial colonies arguing over territory on a grain of sand. Second, your sense of kinship expands beyond the artificial boundaries we've constructed. When you understand that the carbon in your DNA and the carbon in every plant, animal, and human on Earth all originated in the same stellar furnaces, when you grasp that we're all temporary arrangements of the same recycled cosmic material, when you see that the oxygen you breathe out becomes the oxygen someone else breathes in, the divisions between us and them start to feel arbitrary, even absurd. Third, you develop what Sagan called cosmic responsibility, the realization that Earth is the only known oasis of life in a vast desert of space, that consciousness is possibly the rarest phenomenon in the universe, that we may be the only beings in our cosmic neighborhood capable of understanding our own origins and contemplating our own future. This understanding transforms how you think about our obligations to each other and to the living world that created us. But here's what makes the message so urgent right now. We're living through what may be the most critical century in human history. The decisions we make in the next few decades about climate change, artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, nuclear weapons, and space exploration will determine whether consciousness continues to flourish on Earth or whether our planet becomes another lifeless rock orbiting an ordinary star. We're at the point where cosmic perspective isn't just philosophically enriching, it's practically essential for survival. Yet look around, at how we're actually behaving. We're more polarized than ever, more tribal, more willing to reject evidence that contradicts our preferred narratives. We're treating symptoms instead of causes, fighting over the arrangement of deck chairs while the ship takes on water. We're acting like passengers on the Titanic, arguing about seating assignments while the iceberg approaches. The forgotten message Sagan left us is that this behavior isn't just destructive, it's cosmically absurd. We're the first known species in the universe's history to develop the ability to understand our own cosmic origins, to appreciate beauty on a planetary scale, to feel compassion for suffering anywhere on Earth, to consciously participate in our own evolution. And we're squandering this extraordinary inheritance on conflicts that will seem laughably petty to any future civilization advanced enough to study our remains. Imagine if the first humans to develop language had used it primarily to insult each other. Imagine if the inventors of agriculture had used it mainly to poison their neighbors' crops. Imagine if the discoverers of fire had used it exclusively to burn down their own shelters. This is approximately how our current behavior would appear to any sufficiently advanced cosmic observers, a species that developed godlike powers and used them primarily for self-destruction. But it doesn't have to be this way. The same cosmic perspective that reveals our cosmic insignificance also reveals our cosmic significance. We may be tiny in space, but we're enormous in possibility. We may be brief in time, but we're profound in potential. We may be fragile, but we're also the most complex structures the universe has yet produced, and possibly the only ones capable of consciously guiding the universe's future development. This is the transformative power of the message we've forgotten. It doesn't diminish us, it elevates us. It doesn't make us feel worthless. It makes us feel worthy of our cosmic inheritance. It doesn't encourage nihilism, it demands excellence. When you truly understand what you are, stardust that has learned to dream, matter that has developed the capacity for love, energy that has organized itself into consciousness, how can you settle for anything less than your highest potential? If these words are stirring something in you, if you're beginning to remember what we've collectively chosen to forget, then you're ready to join a growing community of people who understand that cosmic perspective isn't abstract philosophy. It's practical wisdom for navigating the challenges of technological civilization. Subscribe to this channel not just to learn more about science, but as a commitment to remembering who you really are and what you're really capable of. And share with us in the comments, what would change in your life if you truly remembered your cosmic origins? What would you do differently if you fully grasped both your cosmic insignificance and your cosmic responsibility? Your perspective matters because you are the universe becoming aware of itself, and your choices help determine what kind of universe we become. There's a passage in Carl Sagan's final book that reads like prophecy, a warning so precise it's almost supernatural in its accuracy. Written in the mid-1990s, decades before social media, before the current epidemic of conspiracy theories, before the systematic attack on expertise that characterizes our current moment, Sagan wrote, "I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues. When the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when, clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide, almost without noticing, back into superstition and darkness." This wasn't just social commentary. It was a diagnosis of the exact disease that would eventually threaten everything he valued about human civilization. Sagan understood something that most of us are still struggling to accept. The greatest threat to our species isn't asteroids or supervolcanic eruptions or gamma-ray bursts from distant stars. The greatest threat is the rejection of the very thinking processes that allowed us to identify and understand these cosmic dangers in the first place. The forgotten message that could save us isn't hidden in complex equations or locked away in academic journals. It's the simple recognition that reality doesn't care about our opinions, our feelings, our political affiliations, or our cultural traditions. Reality has its own agenda, its own timeline, its own consequences for those who ignore its signals. And the only reliable method we've developed for understanding reality's agenda is the scientific method. the disciplined practice of following evidence wherever it leads, even when it leads somewhere we'd rather not go. But here's what makes this message so difficult to remember. It requires intellectual humility in a culture addicted to intellectual arrogance. It demands that we change our minds when new evidence emerges, in a world where changing your mind is seen as weakness rather than growth. It insists that some questions have objectively correct answers, in an era that has confused tolerance with relativism and mistaken respect for persons with respect for ideas. Sagan saw this coming. He watched as scientific literacy declined, as critical thinking skills eroded, as the tools of reasoning that built our technological civilization were increasingly viewed as optional accessories rather than essential survival skills. He understood that we were creating a world utterly dependent on science and technology, while simultaneously undermining the methods that created and maintain these life-sustaining systems. This is perhaps the most dangerous paradox in human history. We've built a global civilization that would collapse without scientific thinking, yet we've somehow convinced ourselves that scientific thinking is just one opinion among many, no more valid than intuition, tradition, or wishful thinking. It's like building a skyscraper and then arguing that the laws of physics are merely suggestions. The consequences of this paradox are playing out around us right now. Climate scientists with decades of training and access to global temperature data warn us about the consequences of atmospheric changes, and we debate whether to believe them based on political party affiliation. Epidemiologists studying disease patterns across populations recommend public health measures during a pandemic, and we choose our response based on social media posts rather than peer-reviewed research. Engineers design bridges using mathematical principles, but imagine if we started voting on whether those mathematical principles were true based on which ones made us feel better about our commute. This is the madness Sagan foresaw, and it's the madness that could destroy us. Not because reality will punish us for having wrong opinions. Reality is genuinely indifferent to our opinions, but because reality will inevitably impose consequences for actions based on demonstrably false beliefs. If you believe you can fly and step off a cliff, gravity will not suspend its operations out of respect for your confidence. If you believe that burning fossil fuels has no effect on atmospheric chemistry, the atmosphere will not pause its warming out of deference to your skepticism. But the forgotten message contains hope as well as warning. Sagan understood that humans are capable of extraordinary wisdom when we choose to exercise our highest cognitive abilities. We split atoms and healed diseases. We mapped the human genome and detected gravitational waves. We sent spacecraft to the edge of the solar system and learned to see our planet from space. Every medical treatment that has extended human life, every technology that connects us across vast distances, every scientific insight that has expanded our understanding of the cosmos, all of it emerged from the disciplined application of rational thinking to observable phenomena. The same species capable of creating nuclear weapons is capable of eliminating nuclear weapons. The same intelligence that developed industrial processes threatening our planet's climate is capable of developing technologies that work in harmony with natural systems. The same creativity that invented social media can be directed towards solving the problems social media has created. But only if we remember how to think clearly, how to distinguish between what we want to be true and what actually is true, how to follow evidence even when it's inconvenient. This is why the cosmic perspective Sagan offered isn't just philosophical inspiration, it's practical preparation for the challenges ahead. When you understand that Earth is the only known refuge for life in a vast cosmic wilderness, you take climate change seriously regardless of your political affiliation. When you grasp that consciousness may be the rarest phenomenon in the universe, you protect the conditions that sustain consciousness, regardless of short-term economic considerations. When you realize that we may be the cosmos's only experiment in self-awareness, you commit yourself to thinking clearly about our future, regardless of how uncomfortable that thinking might be. The message we've forgotten is ultimately about growing up intellectually and emotionally as a species, about learning to make decisions based on evidence rather than emotion, on long-term consequences rather than immediate gratification, on what serves the continuation of consciousness rather than what serves our temporary tribal loyalties. The universe has been patient with us during our intellectual adolescence, but adolescence cannot last forever. The question is, whether we'll mature in time to handle the cosmic responsibilities that come with cosmic powers. The forgotten message that could save us ends not with a warning, but with an invitation. Carl Sagan understood that fear, no matter how justified, is insufficient motivation for the kind of fundamental transformation our species needs. People don't change their deepest patterns of thinking and being simply because they're afraid. They change because they fall in love with a vision of what they could become. The cosmic perspective Sagan offered isn't ultimately about humility in the face of vastness. It's about recognizing the extraordinary privilege and responsibility of being conscious participants in cosmic evolution. Think about what you actually are, not in the diminished way our culture has taught you to see yourself, but in the full light of scientific understanding. You are an arrangement of atoms that were forged in stellar furnaces billions of years ago, elements that have been recycling through cosmic processes since long before Earth existed. You are made of calcium from exploded stars, iron from supernovae, carbon from ancient stellar cores. But you're not just any arrangement of these elements. You're an arrangement so complex, so sophisticated, so improbably organized that you can contemplate your own atomic composition. You can think about thinking. You can wonder about wonder. You can love the very fact that you're capable of love. In all the vastness of space, across all the billions of years of cosmic time, matter has learned to organize itself into patterns capable of appreciating beauty, understanding mathematics, feeling compassion for suffering, creating art, asking questions about the nature of existence itself. As far as we know, this has happened exactly once in our cosmic neighborhood. You are not just witnessing this miracle, you are this miracle. You are matter become conscious, energy organized into awareness, the universe opening its eyes and seeing itself clearly for perhaps the first time. This understanding changes everything about how you might choose to spend your brief time as conscious stardust. When you truly grasp what you are, not just intellectually but viscerally, emotionally, spiritually, certain choices become inevitable. You cannot knowingly damage the only known refuge for consciousness in our region of space. You cannot waste your extraordinary cognitive inheritance on petty conflicts and manufactured outrage. You cannot squander the most sophisticated information processing system we know of anywhere in the universe on consuming information designed to make you angry, afraid, or addicted. The forgotten message is ultimately a call to conscious evolution, an invitation to participate actively in determining what kind of future consciousness we'll have on Earth and beyond. For the first time in our planet's history, one species has developed the ability to consciously direct its own evolution, not just biological evolution through genetic engineering, but cultural evolution through our choices about what values to cultivate, what knowledge to pursue, what kind of world to create for future generations. This is simultaneously the most terrifying and the most inspiring moment in the known history of the universe. Terrifying because we now possess the power to end the entire experiment of consciousness on Earth through nuclear warfare, climate destruction, or other forms of civilizational collapse. Inspiring because we also possess, for the first time, the knowledge and capability to become conscious gardeners of consciousness itself, nurturing the conditions that allow awareness, creativity, love, and wisdom to flourish not just on Earth, but potentially throughout the cosmos. Sagan saw that we're living through what he called the hinge of history, the crucial period when a species either learns to use its technological powers wisely and graduates to cosmic citizenship, or destroys itself through failure to develop the wisdom necessary to handle godlike capabilities. Most species that reach this threshold probably don't make it. The cosmos may be littered with the remains of civilizations that developed nuclear weapons before developing the wisdom to avoid using them, that altered their planetary atmospheres before learning to live sustainably, that created artificial intelligence before understanding how to align it with their deepest values. But we still have time. We still have the knowledge, the resources, and the capability to choose a different path. The same scientific thinking that revealed our cosmic origins can guide us toward a cosmic future. The same technologies that threaten our survival can be directed toward ensuring our thriving. The same global communication networks that spread misinformation can spread wisdom, compassion, and the kind of species-wide cooperation that survival in the cosmos requires. The choice is ours, but it must be made consciously, deliberately, with full awareness of what's at stake. This isn't just about human survival, though that would be reason enough. This is about the continuation of the most extraordinary phenomenon we know of anywhere in the universe. Matter that has become aware of itself, energy that has organized into consciousness, the cosmos awakening to its own beauty and possibility. Every time you choose critical thinking over comfortable delusion, every time you follow evidence rather than ideology, every time you expand your circle of moral concern beyond your immediate tribe to include all conscious beings, every time you act with future generations in mind rather than just immediate gratification, you are participating in conscious evolution. You are helping to determine whether consciousness continues to flourish and spread throughout the cosmos, or whether it remains a brief, failed experiment on a small planet orbiting an ordinary star. The forgotten message that could save us is ultimately about remembering our cosmic inheritance and living up to our cosmic potential. We are the universe becoming conscious of itself, and through our choices, our thinking, our commitment to truth and wisdom and compassion, we help determine what kind of universe we become. This is your invitation to remember who you really are and what you're really capable of. Subscribe to this journey not just of learning about the cosmos, but of consciously participating in cosmic evolution. Share with us in the comments. How will you use your brief time as conscious stardust? What legacy will you leave for future generations of conscious beings? What kind of universe do you want to help create through your choices and your commitment to the highest potentials of consciousness? The cosmos has been preparing for this moment for nearly 14 billion years. Stars lived and died to create the elements that make your thoughts possible. Billions of years of evolution experimented with countless forms of life to produce the complexity that enables human consciousness. Now it's your turn to add your voice to the cosmic conversation, to contribute your unique perspective to the universe's ongoing experiment in awareness, wisdom, and love. The message that could save us isn't forgotten after all. It lives in everyone who chooses to remember what we are and commit to what we could become.